Hello, happy Wednesday. This is Wednesday Coffee with me, Pastor Justin.
And Pastor Austin, and
What's
it
that?
is football season almost.
Woo!
I had to bring my
It
Nebraska
is
cup today.
it is way too hot for football.
That's accurate.
It is way too hot for
It should not
football.
be this hot still.
Well, I hope you're well today. Thank you for clicking in to join us. We've been talking about, we haven't actually talked about evangelism.
No, not yet.
We've been evangelism kind of series here leading toward that. I think we might actually talk about that a little bit today.
I think so.
Yeah, we've been kind of seeding that conversation, but let me tell you something to start here that a seminary professor shared with me, years ago. Dr. Newell Williams was the president of Bright Divinity School, my daddy's boss in that role up there. He was and is a world-renowned church historian as well, and in particular, an historian of American church history, disciples church history, and learned a lot from the man.
I took disciples history with him at Bright. Yeah,
He's tough, like appropriately tough,
Yep.
but also, man, the guy would start to talk, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, he's preaching, and you just get
he's a
lost in this
storyteller.
beautiful, story of the faith. So he asked a question. We were talking about Christian faith on the American frontier. Okay, and in the 1800s. The Christian faith was exploding across the American frontier, even as the population exploded across the frontier. And there were three movements, three denominations in particular. There were dozens, of Christian denominations active, and many of those, grew to some extent and are still vibrant today. But there were three movements in particular that were just thriving. I mean, really, truly exploding. In terms of participation, worship, numbers, all that. And those three were the Baptist Church, the Methodist Church, and the Presbyterian Church. All right. And of course, those of you that know some Disciples of Christ history know that we ultimately grew out of the Presbyterian movement in the first half of the 19th century. So his question was, why those three? What was it about those three more so than any other denominations on the American frontier that really took off at that time? And he had a theory, and it can be encapsulated in one word. What's the word?
Zeal.
Zeal. The word zeal. Yeah, people were in those movements were zealous about sharing good news. I mean, they believed that they had been given a treasure in the gospel of Jesus Christ, and it's like they couldn't help but get out there and share it. They wanted everybody to have the blessing of what they had found in the gospel, and would do whatever it took. I mean, wouldn't stop at it to get out there and share it. I think much like people in the first century,
Absolutely.
zealous about whatever it took to get out there and share that good news. So at some point, and not for all Christian movements, but I would say at some point for many Christians over the past 50 plus years, there has become almost this sense of evangelism being a dirty word.
Yeah.
Right? It almost feels like, I don't want to be on the evangelism committee. Ugh.
Right.
Okay, so Pastor Austin, what is that? Why has that happened? And I would say for many people in the Disciples of Christ, I mean, we feel just some kind of weight around the word, the concept of evangelism. What's that about?
I would start by saying one of the things that I really appreciate and love about Disciples is that we kind of hold this tension, and that's what it is, this tension of, I have this faith in something really beautiful and amazing, and also I want to give space to the other, this person, and I don't want to make them believe exactly how I believe. And then there's kind of this tension of, but what can I say? And what should I say? What do I say if I say anything, right? And so I respect that about Disciples. And it's also, I think, a tension that we have a hard time holding sometimes. I think evangelism, this word gets icky because when I think of how maybe faith has been shared over the centuries, there's been some ugly stuff that the church has done in the name of a good God, right? And when we
Crusades.
Yeah, crusades. Standing up on soapboxes and condemning people in streets. That doesn't sound like good news, right? And so I wonder how often evangelism has been more located in ego rather than in good news gospel truth.
Okay, interesting. So here we have these people being zealous, and maybe in some beautiful ways.
Absolutely.
I mean, for all the right reasons, right? I want somebody to be blessed, and to share in this treasure and have abundance and life and all of that. Okay, but then the question becomes, what is the nature and form and motivation for the zeal? Right. If it is truly zeal in the name of Jesus and out of love for the other, there's something beautiful there that we don't want to lose.
Yeah.
But zealous how and zealous about what?
If I'm zealous to make you exactly like me, well, then I think that's more rooted in my own kind of ego and my own power, right?
Right. We talked last week about assimilation versus incorporation.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you're trying to assimilate because life is more comfortable for me if I can make you like me.
Right.
Maybe that's...
We have a really rough history with that in our own location, right? Thinking about Native Americans and how the church really came in and assimilated, right, in a lot of ways, these groups of people.
At what cost?
At what cost?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So okay, so here's a little story. I was at church camp years ago, and we had a guy come, and gosh, I won't name names, of course. He stood up in the middle of one of the keynotes, and he was a youth leader at a church. And he stood up and he was angry because he felt like the keynote wasn't pointed enough. And I'll never forget the next thing he said. He said, I've saved 80 people this year, and I know how it's done. And what you're doing right now is not it. Yeah. And the first thing, and I was one of the directors that year. And we took the guy aside, we sat down, and the first thing I had to say, and I tried not to be prideful because I could be...
Sure, we're all human, right? We all get caught up.
And it was like, brother, you haven't saved anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was a pretty big I statement.
Yeah, right. And so if we're zealous because we want to make ourselves feel good about our tally of people that we've brought to Christ over the past year, maybe that has more to do with me than the person that I'm reaching out to.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe that's the wrong kind of zeal.
Maybe, even, and this is icky, this is hard, but getting people to make sure that we can shore up the church budget.
Yeah. If we're recruiting because we want to grow our numbers so that we can sustain our institution, which, by the way, we're doing. Why? So that we can make ourselves continue to feel comfortable with the place that we have.
Right.
Yeah, maybe there's
that's
something
not
we're
rooted
missing
in a
there.
good news.
Right. Maybe that's not really good news. I would also add that probably one of the things that I think has happened, over the past 100 years or so, and maybe this has always been a challenge, but I think we have, in the post-Enlightenment world that we live in, because we associate truth, we make truth a head thing instead of a head and heart and total being thing. It has we've increasingly associated faith with doctrine. And those two things are not the same.
Yep.
I'm not saying doctrine's not important. I'm not saying there's not a place for truth claims.
Absolutely.
Justice claims, all of that. But if we make doctrine a proxy for faith, I think we've lost something.
Yeah.
And I wonder if much of our zeal hasn't been about transmitting, imposing, my doctrine, right? Making you think the things that I think.
Right.
And if we're zealous about that, I'm not sure that's quite fully the good news
Right.
either.
Right.
Maybe those are some of the things that we begin, or some people, including I would put myself in this camp, have have begun to push back
Absolutely.
against
Yeah.
a little bit.
I think, in a lot of ways, that's where church hurt is rooted, and for a lot of folks, right? In this day and time where, somebody told me as I was growing up in church that I have to be like this. It reminds me of this story, and I've told it in a sermon before. I was in 3rd grade and getting ready to stand up in front of my church on a Wednesday night to lead singing. And Wednesdays were a little bit more casual. Sundays were you wear a suit and nice shirt and tie, right? But Wednesdays you could wear a t-shirt and some shorts, right? And so I showed up to lead singing in a t-shirt and shorts, probably after a full day of school. Got up there and did the thing for the whole service, right? And after service, a woman came up to me and said, you're not giving God your best by wearing those shorts. And as part of Christians, we have to give God our best. And that hurt. And there's like this sense that maybe she was trying to do something good by saying, this is part of the doctrine that we hold together, part of the thing that we do together. But she did it in a way that wasn't good and gave me hurt, right? And I think there's a lot of people who have experienced hurt by the ways that we've said, you have to be like me and you have to think like me.
And do it this way.
In order to be in this space, even.
Gotcha.
Which I don't think was the way Jesus did it.
Gotcha.
Right.
Agreed. Yeah. So, okay. And so then let's now turn the spotlight back on us, because we've been talking about, those people, right, who have been zealous in the wrong ways. And I think those are some important things to name.
Yeah.
Okay, and what's the flip side? Have we, out of that concern, have we maybe given over the gospel, given over evangelism, given over ourselves in some ways that have maybe held us back from evangelism and what it can and should be, right?
Absolutely.
That beautiful thing, from reaching out as passionately as we can to find hungry, hurting people and doing what we can to bless them and share this good news and hopefully come alongside them in ways that bring about abundance and joy in their
and transformation
in their lives,
absolutely.
Right? Okay, so how have we where is our responsibility in that, if somehow we've sort of let evangelism be a dirty word?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we hold this tension, right, of how we give good news to people. One way that I think about it is we experience something really beautiful and good here. How do we bring that good outside of here without saying you've got to be exactly like who I am? One thing about FCC is that I hear from a lot of folks is that they show up in this space and they feel very welcome. They feel at home. They feel like they can be who they are, while also surrounded with a lot of tradition and a lot of, Christian things and,
and some challenge.
Absolutely. Right. We don't all agree on everything here, and we hold space together. And the good news there is it feels palpable when people come in here, right? How do we bring that outside of here?
Yeah. There's a lot of people with that church hurt that aren't going to come.
Right.
They're not going to come here.
No.
So how can we find them and come alongside them out there?
Right. Yeah. I think it begins with this kind of conversation.
Yeah.
We have to be willing to ask the question, is this rooted in good news, or is this rooted in my ego? Is this rooted in, what's going to make me feel good about my church, about myself, about whatever? Or is this rooted in my belief that there's whole beauty and goodness for everybody here?
Yeah. God is working in this world, and wants to be in relationship with us and bless us, and I I love you, not just the you that I think you should be, but I really see and love and appreciate and value you so much that I can't help but, share space with you and share dialogue and invite in meaningful ways this divine blessing, and so I really think I think there are beautiful ways that we can do evangelism and share good news, that are not ego driven.
Right.
And that's, I think, where we ultimately want to get to with these conversations.
Absolutely.
Next week, and let's leave people with a question here to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to talk about what the good news is, and there are a lot of faithful people who would define that a little bit differently.
Absolutely.
Even if they're all using Scripture as a guide. Okay, so let's wrestle with that. So what's the question for our folks here? Is it how do we phrase that question for people to think about this week in advance of our next session?
What do you think good news is?
Yeah.
What is the good news for you? In your experience of church, in your experience of who Jesus is, in your experience of Scripture, what is the good news?
What is the good news?
What's good enough that it makes you want to say, like, this is important to share?
What makes it good enough that you're willing to kill your ego and to share it in faithful ways?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that next week. So think about that, pray about that over the next week. If you have thoughts, let us know in the comments.
Totally.
We will take that up and talk about that next week. And then I think from that place of talking about what good news is, let's continue the conversation and go into ways that we can share that faithfully, and I would say zealously, but in a way that's not ugly and hurtful and ego-driven.
Right.
All
Absolutely.
right. God bless you. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you back here for more conversation next week.
Absolutely. Peace, church.